Hey guys, Josh Culler here, the host of the Good Success Podcast. Hey, I'm just dropping in here to let you know that we are giving a free book away. Yes, a free book called Active Turnkey, The Best Way to Buy Rentals by Tom Olson himself, the president of Good Success. Yes, I did say we are giving it away for free. All you got to do is go to goodsuccess.com/ATKbook. Again, that's goodsuccess.com/ATKbook. as an active turnkey. And we're going to cover the book. So we're going to actually pay for the book and give it to you for free. We're just asking you to cover shipping costs, which is very minimal compared to the value that you're going to be getting in the book. So if you are interested in learning how to create financial freedom with real estate, go get your copy now. Again, that is goodsuccess.com/ATKbook. Thank you for listening to the Good Success Podcast, and I hope you enjoy this episode. Welcome back to the Good Success Podcast. I'm your host, Josh Culler, and we've got Tom Olson, president of Good Success. He's in Rhode Island. So the past few episodes, we keep saying Tom's in Rhode Island. No, guys, he hasn't been in Rhode Island for 2 months. We're recording all these. We just decided to record all these while Tom's away on vacation and everything. So
yeah, we don't record any when Josh is on vacation, but for some reason we do when I am.
That's because I'm the producer, so I have to be here.
I don't know, Josh.
Hey, well, I'll let you produce an episode if you want.
Okay.
Hey, it's on. Emily, you're going to help him out. So, this is going to be awesome. But we appreciate Tom taking the time to be on here, and we love him to death. So then we got John Martinez on the show today. John is a good friend of ours. We've known him way back in the day. And so, John, it's awesome to have you on the show today.
Man, it's good to be here. Thanks for having me.
So if you guys don't know, John is with MidwestRev.com. That's the website for them, but Midwest Revenue Group is their company name. He said it's Nixa, Missouri, and that's correct, right?
That's right, man.
He almost sounded a little embarrassed when you told me where it was, but it was like I didn't know where it was, which I really didn't know where Nixa, Missouri
Here's our claim to fame. If you ever watch, what's the movie with Jason Bourne?
The Bourne Identity, Bourne Ultimatum,
From
something
Nixa,
like that.
Missouri in that movie. So if you ever see Nixa, Missouri in that movie, that's where I'm at right now.
Okay. Next time I watch it, I'll keep that in mind. That's interesting. It seems like small towns always have those our claim to fame, like you said. So, but anyway, so John is out of Nixa, Missouri. He's with Midwest Revenue Group. He's a sales trainer for real estate investors, but we were also talking before the show, and he's actually getting into things outside of real estate, which we'll have him talk about here in just a little bit. But great sales training. I know that Tom, way back maybe a year and a half, 2 years ago, we actually had John train our sales teams, and that went well. So we're excited to have him on. We got some really good information that's going to be conveyed here from John. We got a lot of really good questions, so we're looking forward to that. But before we get into it, if you guys haven't already, make sure you have subscribed to the Good Success Podcast. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play, all the podcast platforms. Just go there, look for Good Success, and then subscribe to us. And then also, if you're able to, we would appreciate it if you leave us a review. Let us know what you think about these podcasts. We would love to hear your thoughts. And then we got the Active Turnkey book, The Best Way to Buy Rentals by Tom Olson himself. He's in Rhode Island, so he can't take this from me, but he's told me he's okay with giving it out for free. So Tom's paying for the book. All you guys got to do is go to goodsuccess.com/ATKbook, and you can pick yours up for free. All you got to do is cover shipping costs. That's all we're asking. We're paying for the book, and you're going to get a lot of value out of that. We talk about the 5 wealth drivers, financial freedom through real estate. Again, the subtitle is The Best Way to Buy Rentals, and this is Tom's way of giving back some knowledge that he's had, and we've actually trademarked Active Turnkey. I tried to put all those words together. Trademarked Active Turnkey, Tom did. And so he talks about that. Great model and a lot of value that is in that book. So make sure you take advantage of that. Again, that's goodsuccess.com/ATKbook. And then we have our Good Success Mastermind, which is stacking up right now. Tom, I just scheduled another 2 calls with some guys that are going to be joining us in November in Miami. November 8, 9, and 10 are the dates for that, for the Good Success Mastermind. We're looking forward to that. We do have a boat ride again. So the boat, what happens on the boat stays on the boat, Tom. Is that right? Is that what we're going with, or is it going on social media?
That's what we're going with on this one. What happens on the boat instantly goes on Facebook. I mean, it stays on the boat.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So what Tom said, so we're going to have a lot of fun with that. November 7 is the activity for that. The members asked for more networking, so we're like, all right, well, we're going to get a boat, and we'll throw you guys on the boat for 4 hours, and you guys can chat on there. So we're looking forward to that. It's a private boat, so it's just the mastermind members that are going to be there. So we're looking forward to that. That is the 7th of November in Miami, Florida. And then the actual mastermind event is November 8, 9, and 10. You could check that out at goodsuccess.com/mastermind. Fill out the application there. We do have you fill out an application. We vet you by the core values that we have. Yes, the volume of deals that you're doing, but also charity, community stewardship, and growth are our core values, and we vet you by that as well. So once you fill out the application, you'll talk to either myself or Tom, and then we'll go from there. So Tom, do you want to add on to anything about the mastermind coming up? We're very excited. We got a lot of new attendees that are going to be there, and it's going to be a great event.
No, but just more to the actual mastermind members themselves. Make sure you bring your A game this time. It's going to be a really good event. It's going to be jam-packed. We're going to have to be a little bit more disciplined than we normally are with our time frames. So we're going to have to just stop right at 25 minutes every single time because we have probably too many people to fit into 3 days. So I also need you to be there 8:11 a.m. on Wednesday morning, and be willing to Thursday morning, and be willing to go all the way till at least 5 o'clock on Saturday. So I know that's going to be a long 3 days, and people's heads will be spinning when it's over with. But I think it's going to be a really good event. I'm really excited, and I know Josh is really pumped about this particular event. We have some really good news for you as well, along with the Think Realty Leadership Circle and some things that we're doing potentially in Washington with our group. So anyways, I know that's a little bit of a teaser, but that's
a teaser.
Me and Eddie have been talking about some things that we're going to be able to do, and it's really exciting.
Yeah, very excited about that. We did talk about that in the leadership circle, and so we're looking forward to unveiling all of that information. It's going to be some great news for real estate investors and the real estate industry in general. So we're excited about that. We're really right on the cusp of going a full week for the mastermind now. So we even have scheduled for the February event, the first quarter, to go a full week in Dallas at Quest IRA at their office there in Dallas. So great event. You guys check it out. goodsuccess.com/mastermind. Again, those dates are November 8, 9, and 10 in Miami, Florida. So, and then we have the Community Go Giver event. So early bird pricing's going on right now. Save a couple $100, and you guys can go sign up for that, communitygogiver.com. If you want to learn more about that, we do have some videos, testimonials, and stuff like that are on the website, so you could check that out. Early bird pricing, take advantage of that now. Tom's gonna we're pretty soon here. We're gonna start talking more and more about the events. Tom's putting together the full lineup right now. I know he's got a lot of people locked in that are going to be speaking at the event, and it's going to be an exciting event. I know that the last lineup was incredible, but this one's going to be better, at least as good, if not better, than the last event. So we're excited about that. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into this interview with John Martinez. I'm excited about this with Midwest Revenue Group. I keep looking at midwestrev.com, and then I stop at Rev, and I don't go forward with Revenue Group. So it's Midwest Revenue Group that John Martinez is with, and he's excellent. I've seen a lot of your reviews, and people call you a ninja in sales. So that's interesting. That's pretty cool. But do us a brief introduction of who you are, what you do, how long you've been doing that.
Yeah. I'm a sales trainer. I've been in sales my whole life, so going on just about 20 years now. Most of that time was in corporate America, building sales teams, managing salespeople, small organizations, private, up to some publicly owned, pretty large entities. The last 4 or 5 years, I've just been doing sales training through my own company, kind of left the corporate world and doing my own thing. For the last 3 years, I've focused really, really heavily on the real estate investment space, so that's how we got hooked up.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Yeah, that's very cool. So like I said, we did actually have John train some of our sales team a couple of years ago, and I know Jared was a part of that as well. So Jared's with us with Olsen Group. So great stuff. So John, we got a lot of questions here that, we could go on and on all day about sales. There's just, we could host an entire week-long event about sales. But the first thing I want to get into, so I actually listened to most of your webinar that you had on your website there. And something very interesting I heard, which I've actually heard other places as well, but you went a little bit deeper into it, which made it interesting to me. So closing, the word closing, a lot of salespeople train on closing and like going after the close and that kind of thing. To you, why is closing the wrong way to approach sales when you're getting into like actually like making the sale?
Yeah, well, for a bunch of reasons. Just from the macro perspective, if we just look at the research done, we know that the more time you try to close a prospect, the less likely they are. So then you get into, well, why is that? Why is it when you try to close all the time, why are you less likely to get a deal? And the reason well, there's a few reasons actually. Number one, closing creates pressure. This is no secret. Anyone could just think of, right now you can think of, hey, what's an unpleasant sales scenario? What do you think of when you think of a high pressure sales scenario? And you're going to think of whatever you think of, and you're going to start to think of all the ways you protect yourself, right? If I was going to go do a timeshare presentation, my wife's behind me right now. I'd probably get her and say, hey, honey, as we go in, if they try to close us, we're going to do this. We're going to say we have to talk to these people. We don't have the money. We can't make a decision without sleeping on it. So right off the bat, we all know from just like our personal lives that when people try to close us, we feel pressure, and we either just shut down or mislead salespeople, or we might get a little aggressive and fight back a little bit or push back a little bit. So it's not good. And the reason why that pressure isn't good is because in order for me to make a decision myself that, hey, this is something I want to do, there's, a product or a service I want to buy or something in my life I want to change. In order for me to do that, the right sales conversation is going to dive pretty deep into motivation, usually to the point where we're talking about personal impact. How's the decision to change or not change impact me personally? We're going to have to talk about all the fears, frustrations, risks, discomfort associated with me making a change. And in order to get that deep into the conversation, we're going to have open and honest conversation. There can't be any pressure. So all the way from the macro perspective, the more times you try to do it, the less likely you are, down to why it creates pressure. Well, why is pressure bad? Because it shuts down conversation, and you never get into motivation or, why you would do a deal or why you wouldn't do a deal. So that's the synopsis of it all.
Yeah, absolutely. So then I assume that kind of plays into the concept of the emotional brain that you even talked about in your webinar there. So it sounds like you have a lot of experience with, I guess, like the brain, emotions, and how all that plays into it. Can you kind of explain like your background with that? That's the first thing that interests me is how you learned all that, the prefrontal cortex and like all that stuff, and how that plays into sales.
Yeah, well, I mean, no training or no education around that. Just the more and more I studied sales, that's kind of where the research went to. Gotcha. Probably about 15 years ago, we started looking at decision making. And when we started looking at decision making, kind of the forerunner there was Dr. Antonio Damasio. He's a professor of neuroscience at USC. And his study was around how emotion plays a part in the decision making process. So that's kind of where we started to get into how the brain works and that type of stuff. And then, of course, there's psychology and those other things. But when you look at neuroscience and psychology, and then you look at things like basic economics, when you look at all the behavioral sciences, when you start to roll all those things into one, what you end up coming up with is a new discipline as of about the last 10 years, which is neuroeconomics. And that's what we study. Neuroeconomics is just a unified theory of decision making. And the way the brain is built is a huge piece of that.
Interesting. That's very interesting. So then applying to sales, how can salesmen kind of apply that to their thinking when they're actually going through a deal, not closing, but executing a sale?
Well, it's just like reverse engineering, right? First, you look at how people make decisions. And when you look at that, you realize really quickly that decisions are made from an emotional place. All decisions, all complex decisions. So decisions with 2, 3, 4 variables, like selling a property or buying a property, those are all made in the part of the emotional part of the brain. There's lots of reasons why. One of them is just because that's the most powerful part of the brain we have. Mm-hmm. It's about literally 1 million times stronger than our logical brain. So we make decisions in the emotional part of the brain. So when we know that, if that's how people are making decisions, that's the way we want to sell, right? We want to tap into how they make decisions, so we can help them kind of and walk them through that decision-making process. So applying that to sales, all that really means is you should have a conversation with the prospect and kind of geared towards and structured it the exact same way they make a decision. So we're going to want to have some emotional tie-ins to personal impact and stuff like that. In other words, if you just stay completely logical, you're less likely to do a deal.
And that, when you say completely logical, so there's obviously like some logic you want to use behind when you're, so let's say you're marketing to a distressed seller, because that's sales as well, because you're trying to acquire a property from a distressed seller, because that is as emotional as it gets, especially if they've, inherited the property from a loved one that's passed on or something like that. So what's the good balance between using logic and emotion towards that situation?
Yeah, well, if you kind of trace the path of a decision through the brain, it starts with the emotion, and we actually decide without us even knowing what's going on from the emotional place, what decision we're going to make. And then if you kind of follow the way synapses are firing and all kinds of, that nutty stuff, then we justify it logically. So the way we want to sell is to appeal to the emotion first, and then get into, and here, by the way, here's why it makes sense.
Gotcha.
You could probably anyone could think of, almost anything they've bought. And if you really think hard about it, and if you get real with yourselves, you realize, hey, I wanted this because of ego, or because of status, or because of the way it made me feel. But then you justify it. I think I can remember back to when I was just starting in sales, and I came from, no money. I came from, I was picked on in school, kind of that kid. So I had a chip on my shoulder, something to prove. Yeah. So I remember my first nice car, that wasn't a hand-me-down and, made from different pieces of the junkyard. My first really nice one was a Mercedes. And I did not need a Mercedes, right? I couldn't afford the Mercedes. But I bought it because that made me feel good, right? Because I had that chip on my shoulder. It's kind of like look at me, I'm making it now. But I remember justifying it. I remember thinking to myself, well, it gets 29 miles to the gallon. It has 4 doors, so we can put people in the back and all that kind of stuff. So I know, looking back at a decision like that, that was purely an emotional decision. I didn't need a Mercedes. I wanted the badge. I wanted the status symbol for my ego, for that chip on the shoulder. And then I justified it. Well, we could do the car payment and blah, 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 blah. So that's kind of how decisions are made. So that's the way we want to sell.
Understood. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So then, obviously, like I just said, with the distressed seller, those things are pain points. So we talk a lot about how marketing and sales are like they're sisters with each other in the business, and they got to go at the same speed, or they got to complement each other very well. So a lot of times in marketing, people use pain points as one of the main structures of a marketing strategy. So is that kind of what you're talking about? Really, it boils down to emotional decisions in sales? Yeah,
I mean, because pain points get people's attention. It's kind of like calling them out by name, right? So that's why the marketing is, hey, are you sick and tired of this? Are you feeling overwhelmed by this? And that literally plucks out the right prospects from the crowd, and they say, yes, it's like you're talking right to me. So that's how we kind of recognize those people. Marketing is prospecting, right? But our prospects choose themselves and say, hey, let's talk. So absolutely, we call them out by name with their pain points, because that's eventually what we're going to solve. And then the sales conversation is just a natural extension of that.
Man, right. So, awesome. In a way you're saying, don't go for the close, but really we still always have to be closing. We're leading them down that path to close. And that's really what sales is. It's like that path. And if you can be a good director and a good leader of that client, then you can get them emotionally attached first, and then let them justify it with the numbers or with the data or how that's going to happen. But you have to initially start with getting them emotionally attached to how you're going to help them, and how everything that you're going to do is going to help not only just them, but whoever else this decision affects.
That's absolutely it. I mean, no kidding. The point of all this is to get a deal, right? We're looking to close. But the easiest way to do it, the most effective way to do it is, when we look at sales process, there's just a couple pieces to it, right? Number one, you need motivation. And in this industry, everyone talks about motivated sellers, because when people are motivated, they take action, right? And and we know there's an emotional tie in there, because all the pain points have some type of big emotional impact. So you start with motivation with the sales conversation. And as soon as they're super motivated, as soon as you dig down deep into their motivation, the more you talk about it, the closer you get to however their situation impacts them personally or those around them, the more motivated they're going to be to take some type of action. Just think of it this way. The more pain we're in, the more we're going to do to get out of that pain, right? And after we get motivation up high, then more of the logical part is what I call deal killers. It's, hey, there's still going to be some roadblocks in the way. So even when we want stuff in life, even when we want to take action, there's some fears or some risks or some anxieties that sometimes keep us from doing what we want to do. So the next part of the sales process is, hey, let's kind of get logical now and systematically start to remove all those roadblocks for them. And that's why I say the close happens naturally, because if you think about it, if you're really motivated to take action and then someone just removes all the roadblocks keeping you from taking action, what are you going to do? You're going to take action, right? There's nothing holding you back. You want to, nothing's holding you back. You're going to do it. And that's how prospects close themselves.
Gotcha. That makes total sense. Very good explanation there. It looks like you practiced that. Man, that's some very interesting stuff, how deep you can go into just the logical side and then the emotional side of sales. So that's awesome stuff.
But that kind of leads us back to marketing. I think marketing then has to be more emotional.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because you kind of want to draw them in with that emotional. So like if you're selling turnkey rental properties, for instance, you can't just sell turnkeys with the performa. You have to sell the turnkey with the dream, with how it's going to positively affect their family and their legacy and everything else that rental property could or will give to that person.
That's exactly it, man. And if you go a little bit deeper, it's why are those things important? Well, yeah. I want the stability. I don't want my wife or my spouse or my kids to be in a tight spot. I want them to be able to have choices and not be forced into one way of life or the other. And that emotional impact is what having turnkeys gives you, right? So that's really what people are going, any type of investment, what do you want out of it? Well, I want the security. I want to feel safe. I want a good, predictable revenue stream. It's all those are the problems that turnkeys really solve.
Gotcha.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. That's awesome. So kind of staying along the same lines here, what are some big gaps that you often see in salesmen? Because it seems like salesmen get this bad rap sometimes, and people talk about this all the time, car salesman, like that kind of thing when they hear the word sales. And Tom even gave a really good talk in one of our city hall meetings about sales and how it's all about the other person, bringing value to them and caring about them and first and foremost. So what are some big gaps that you often see when it comes to people that are in sales, no matter what industry that they're in?
Yeah, well, I got to agree with Tom 100%. And that's probably the biggest gap I see is salespeople go straight into presentation without taking the time to realize what problem they're even trying to solve or what the best way to solve it is. So usually a lot of salespeople, if they're not trained on what conversation to have, or they just don't have the experience, they haven't picked it up naturally over time, we fall back on where we're most comfortable. And where we're usually most comfortable as salespeople is with our product or service. So we just start basically throwing up everything we know, right? Here's the people we work with. Here's our ratings. Here's our history. Here's why we're the best, we're the best, we're the best, the best. But that's wrong, because if you don't take the time to figure out what's actually important to the person sitting in front of you, well, you can't connect the dots, right? You might have a great Better Business Bureau rating, right? But that may or may not have any impact on their decision. If they're really worried or have put a lot of stock into the quality of the company they do business with, and that's a main factor in decision-making, then yes, you go to that Better Business Bureau rating and you tie it together. Hey, this is important to you, so I want to show you this because I know it's important to you. So you want that trust factor? We've got that trust factor. Conversely, if something isn't important to someone and you drone on and on and on about it, you're going to lose their attention quickly.
Yeah. It's in sales. I think for me, what I see is people want to talk too much and they don't want to listen. So like you have to have that opportunity to listen first on what the other person is asking you for. And if you don't actually intentively listen and then be able to connect the dots, then you're losing the whole opportunity. Yeah.
I mean, if you think like you brought up car sales, Josh, and that is really like the quintessential sales scenario, but yeah. Imagine if you walked into a car dealership and right as soon as you got on the lot, the car salesman walked up to you, didn't ask what you're looking for, what your price range is, why you're even there, just said, let me show you the car for you. That's what presenting early to, that's what it's equivalent to. Yeah. If you think about it in that context, it is absolutely crazy, right? It's like, well, you got to ask some questions first. Why are you here? What are you looking to get out of this? You're looking for 2 doors or 4. What's important to you? Is it the economy? Is it the payment? Is it the APR? Is it the comfort? Is it status? If you don't know any of those things, how do you know what kind of car to show them?
Yeah,
well, that's the same thing that salespeople do when they jump too quickly into presentation. They're just showing them everything with no clue at all whether they're showing them the right thing or not.
So then the right way, it sounds like, to go about sales is to, obviously you're going to care, but you're going to bring value by finding out exactly what this person needs and what they're looking for, and then channel that. Because as specifically a car salesman, like if you're going car shopping for a 4-door sedan with good gas mileage and this color or that color or whatever, if the car salesman automatically takes you to the brand new SUV, that's a totally different, that's not what this person's looking for. And so that automatically turns people off, it seems like. So I mean, bringing value is definitely big, but also finding out what people want and what people need really is, and that ties back to the emotional decision as well.
Yeah,
you don't want to waste people's time. You don't want to waste your time or their time either way. So be respectful. I think listening is so much a bigger part of communication than trying to communicate with our words.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, and there's studies that back that up. We can actually look at, if we log everything a salesperson says during a sales call, the only measure of success, if you look at all the KPIs and metrics across the board and you want to predict who's a veteran, top-notch salesperson, who's average and who's not, who's, the lower rung, then the only KPI that will tell you that is how many questions and what type of questions the salespeople ask. You don't have to see the conversation, hear the conversation, but if you look at those KPIs, what types of questions and how many of those questions are they asking, without knowing anything else in the world, you can identify top salespeople from the others.
Well, asking the right questions always seems like the best thing to do no matter what situation you're in. And like Tom said, listening. God gave you one mouth and 2 ears for a reason, right? And so apply that to sales. I think that's absolutely huge. So awesome stuff. So kind of switching tracks a little bit here, and then we're going to have to wrap this up. We got a few other questions here that we're going to go with, but some great information that we've gotten from John, and we definitely are going to have you back soon to do another podcast. But specifically going to real estate, the real estate industry, because a lot of, probably most of the majority of our listeners right now are in the real estate industry, whether they're passively investing or actively investing in real estate. So there's a lot of competition out there, no matter what market you're in. How, as a salesperson, can somebody utilize their sales techniques or even apply some sales techniques to rise above competition, whether it's in the acquisitions mode of sales or the actual selling of their assets or their properties, turnkeys or whatever?
Yeah, so 3 quick tips that are going to be very easily actionable that people can start doing today. So if I was going to say three things to increase sales now without doing anything crazy or out of the ordinary, one is going to be right off the bat, let people know that they've got a choice. We always say, hey, yes is good. If we decide to do business together, that's great. But listen, no is okay too. Starting off every conversation by letting your prospects know that, hey, this is going to be a no pressure situation. If we decide to do business together, that's awesome. But if not, hey, no sweat, right? That right there is going to kind of open up the doorway to the right conversation. They're going to share more with you. They're going to answer more of your questions. It will just lead to a better conversation.
Right.
So no is okay is tip number 1.
Because it may make them feel like they're not trapped and they're not pressured, like you said at the beginning.
Absolutely. So tip number 2 and 3 are going to be 2 questions to ask, which tie into kind of part of the sales process we talked about earlier. So motivation. So a question to ask about motivation is, hey, obviously this is your choice. You're going to do whatever you'd like to do. But if you do decide to sell for cash to me or to anyone else, or pick up this rental property, why would you? So that why would you question will open the doorway to motivation. And the longer you get someone talking about motivation, the more of a sense of urgency they feel to actually act on it. So question number 1, why would you? And then also, what's going to stand in their way? You just ask the opposite question. Well, hey, listen, even if price is right and you like everything about this deal, why wouldn't you? Is there any reason why, you just say, hey, I like it, but, something's not right. I don't, I've got to do this. I got to talk to these people. I need to figure out what's happening here. Why wouldn't you? So if you do those 3 things, no is okay. That opens up the doorway to the right conversation. Why would you dives into motivation, and why wouldn't you will help draw out maybe the top 2 or 3 things that will get in the way. So now you can try to address them the best you can.
Awesome.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I think if I remember, this might have been from you. If it's not from you, then correct me if I'm wrong. But when we had the training with you, I think it was about 3 years ago now, you said go for that no as fast as possible. Like you want to get them to say no and get them to and it helps you understand what it's going to take for them to say no. The quicker you can get to that point where they say no, or this is what's going to keep me from making this sale, like the quicker you can rise above those objections and try to see what's really motivating them in the deal.
Yeah, absolutely. There's no bigger pressure relief valve than saying, I don't think this is going to be a fit. In fact, in my sales calls, that's probably one of the top techniques I use is I go, hey, just right off the bat, I want to go to the no as quickly as possible. Either, hey, I'm not sure this is going to work. Let's do a quick run through and see if there's anything here, but my gut's telling me there's not. Or if the call starts going south in any way at all, I shut it down immediately and go, I don't think this is going to be a fit. I really thank you for your time. No hard feelings. And then I get to the right conversation by transitioning with, hey, listen, now that it's over and all the pressure is relieved, now that it's over, what are you going to do? And now they'll open up to me. So the quicker you get to know, to me, that's just a pressure relief valve. And you can sometimes just see people go, and then they'll open up and you can really get down to what you're actually there for.
Very interesting. Yeah. So we talk a lot about networking on this podcast with a lot of people. We always ask, the interviewee to leave one thing, and very more times than not, it's network. Like they wish they would have networked more. They're trying to work on that more and building their network. So with sales specifically, how important is it to network and build relationships with other people?
Yeah, well, it really depends on the type of business you're in, right? If you're in direct marketing, direct sales, then every prospect is a cold prospect. Mm-hmm. But let's face it, I've got a few businesses. I know real estate. I know the way I've grown my business through real estate. Networking and having the right connections are a massive shortcut. Selling is not easy. It's kind of simple. You can follow a game plan, but it's not easy. There's lots of rejection. There's just tons of it's not easy. We all know that, right? But networking is that shortcut, right? Because when you network, the right opportunities will come to you quicker. You don't have to sell as hard. When you network, the right people seek you out instead of you proactively prospecting and seeking them out. So there's all kinds of reasons, but networking, knowing the right people and being in front of them at the right time, or the right people knowing what you do and how you do it, it's invaluable.
Absolutely. I think, Tom, too, especially with like our turnkey products, like our turnkey buyers are extremely important to build relationships with because they could be repeat buyers as well. Like John said, they're not cold calls or they're not cold buyers or whatever. Right. So I know Tom's been pushing really hard for us to even get a customer care, its own department for turnkey buyers and that kind of thing. So I know that we're very on top of that as well. So great stuff. One little question here. I'm going to sneak this one in here because we got to wrap it up. We got a couple more questions that we ask all of our interviewees, but I was very interested about this because it seems like, especially with real estate industry, because that's what we're in. We see a lot of solopreneurs out there. I even had Dewey that's a part of our mastermind. He actually just hired 2 new people for his business, but as of our previous mastermind event, which was in August, he was by himself. And so there's a lot of entrepreneurs that are out there that have their own businesses by themselves. So it almost seems like sometimes that entrepreneurs are natural in sales, specifically like Tom. I mean, he's a purebred entrepreneur, but he's an excellent salesperson. Is there any kind of, I guess, relation between that? Just an entrepreneur, somebody that's willing to get out there, create relationships, build something, and being good salespeople, or is there no connection there? Is it just natural for some people?
No, there's actually a connection there. When there's all kinds of assessments and stuff out there, right? So we use a psychometric assessment that measures all kinds of stuff to determine whether a person can sell or not, can and will sell. But one of the key factors there is what you call a figure it out factor, which basically just means, will you figure it out? Entrepreneurs have this, and salespeople, you have to be a figure it out type of person too, because the way the brain is wired, it's just you find a way. And entrepreneurs are driving towards a goal, and they all figure out sales. Every business owner I work with, or I'd say the vast majority, the entrepreneurs I work with, they can sell. They don't need my help. They have figured it out on their own through experience and determination. Where they run into trouble is when they hire people that aren't entrepreneurs, and they go, you know what? I've been on a 1,000 sales calls, or I've sold this many turnkeys, or bought this many houses, and I figured it out over time, but I never actually sat down and said, this is what works, this is my technique. And so it's hard for them to then train others to do what they've done naturally. So yeah, entrepreneurs and the great salespeople have that figured out factor. But a lot of times the people who they hire do not. And even if they do, they don't have the same drive oftentimes, or the 2, 3, or 4 or 5 years to figure it out on their own.
Gotcha. That makes a lot of sense.
I'm glad we got into this, because I had pre-written some of my questions, and this was one of my questions. How do people like myself, or people that are entrepreneurs that have now sales teams, how do we either transfer our knowledge or some of that tenacity from us to our teams, or how do we get our teams to be trained and be able to sell with the same type of vigor or the same type of process, for instance, that they need to in order to perform at a high level?
Right. So 2 pieces. You need the right raw talent. You need the right ingredients to start with. The right, I call it salesperson DNA, right? And when we talk about DNA, it's not actually people that have a certain skill set, but it's people who lack certain weaknesses. Some of the big ones are the tendency to get emotionally involved. If you have that weakness, you lose track of where you are in the sales process. You get pulled into it emotionally yourself, and you can't really push the decision-making process. Money issues. When I say money issues, that's you might be selling a product or service, and it's an amount of money you're not comfortable talking about. So that really hurts negotiation and the close. You might have a weakness that's, let's say, non-supportive buy cycle. So what that means is, if you're going to be a good salesperson, you're going to want someone to make a decision, yes or no. You don't necessarily care which one they make, but you want decision. If you have a non-supportive buy cycle, that means you take a long time to make decision. You weigh out all kinds of products, goods, different price points. So if you have that weakness, when your prospect says, hey, John, let me think about it, you're going to say, that's exactly how I'd make that decision. You think about it, and you're most likely never hear from them again. The right salesperson will get in and close them. So you start with the right DNA. So who lacks the weaknesses that stand in salespeople's way? Now, once you have that raw material, then they just need to follow a simple process. We have our sales process, but any company can sit down and just think to themselves, hey, what are the 2 or 3 things that have to happen in order for us to get a deal, right? It might be we have to have this conversation, we have to pull these people in, we have to look at this, we have to do this, we need to get buy-in here or there. Just list those top 2 or 3 things that you know have to happen before you get some type of deal, and then start building a sales process around that. And the longer you do that, you're going to start to see, hey, this piece is working, this piece isn't working. You do more of what works, less of what doesn't, and before you know it, you'll have your own sales process. So DNA and process will get you there.
Wow, that's awesome. Excellent question, Tom. I'm glad you asked that. That's a really good thought for people, especially out there building teams and making sure that they get the right people on the right seats on the bus. So some great stuff. So we're gonna have to wrap this up, man. I wish we could go like a couple hours or 3 or 4 hours. There's just a lot of great information that have been in here. So we definitely appreciate, John, you taking the time to be with us here, and we look forward to having you back soon. So these last 2 questions we ask every single interviewee that we get on the show here, because it's always interesting to hear what their thoughts are. So the first one is, for us, good success means something. So it comes from the Bible, Joshua 1:8, and it talks about the quality of the success. And we've built our business around the 4 core values that we have: community, stewardship, growth, and charity. And so it obviously means a lot to us. That's why we even named it that. We've built our brand equity. Our voice is that specifically. So for you, when you hear the term good success, what does that mean to you?
Yeah, so when I hear that, success is different for everybody. We all measure success differently. So when I hear good success, it's success that's right for you. For example, success for me is having control of my time, having control of the decisions I make, spending quality time with my family, and really those tight relationships, really nurturing those. Mm-hmm. So that's success for me. So if somebody came and I use someone else's definition of success and they said, hey, it's to have $1 billion in the bank, I could maybe have someone else's definition of success and have $1 billion in the bank. But if that was at the sacrifice of time with my family, having control of my decisions, having control of my time, I'd be living someone else's version of success. So that would be bad success, right? Yeah. Good success is just living my version of success by my terms, the way I define it.
Gotcha. Tom, I want to start a brand that's bad success. Can we do that? And just teach people what good success is not? Business idea, right? Hey, thanks, John. Appreciate it. So, okay. So then the last thing that we got here is you got to leave our audience with one thing. So a quote, a thought, piece of advice, a resource, something you've learned. One thing you got to leave the audience with. What would that be?
You know, since I'm focused on sales, I would say think about every negative situation you've ever been in. Think about everything you hate about sales, and just do the exact opposite with anyone you talk to or any sales scenario you're in. I know that sounds simple, but most people don't think that way, right? I hate being pressured. Do the exact opposite and remove all the pressure. I hate feeling like I have to make a decision before I've really worked everything out in my head. Do the exact opposite. Help people work out the decision in their head before you ask for a decision. So just do the opposite of everything you hate about sales, and you'll find some good success yourself.
Man, a lot of this is mindset stuff. That's awesome, because almost everything that you've talked about in this podcast is all mindset for sales that it seems like a typical salesperson wouldn't even think about. And I like the fact that you, one of the things when we were talking about entrepreneurs and sales is you talked about how it needs to be in their DNA, and then the rest of it can be taught. The sales processes can be taught to them. So I think that's super interesting. And I know that you teach this. So you have a training course, that we've been a part of as well. So can you talk about that a little bit on how you can somebody can connect with you to get some sales training from you?
Yeah, so we offer training in a few different platforms, a few different ways, online, live, face-to-face, boot camps, that type of stuff. All that information can be found on our website, midwestrev.com. And you can just click through and see if anything kind of fits what you're looking for.
Awesome. And I know you just had a boot camp not too long ago, right?
Yeah.
How did that go?
It was good. I think it was our best one that we've ever had. The more participation we get, the more fun we have, and the better it goes. So on this last one, we decided to do something interesting. We got a big bucket, and we filled it with cash, 50s, 100s, 20s, 10s, 5s, and 1s. And just the whole time, every few minutes, whoever participated would just grab 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 bills. So it was tons of fun, right? Because people got excited, and the thing is, the more people were involved, the more people participated. The reason why we did that is not just to have smiles and giggles and fun, is the more they actually took away from it, the more they actually practiced and role played, and the more success they're going to have when they left. So it was a lot of fun for everyone. We all really enjoyed it.
Awesome stuff. And then do you have any upcoming boot camps or any events that you have that are coming up soon?
Yeah, we actually haven't announced it yet, but I'll go ahead and announce it here.
Okay.
It airs
live right here. We're announcing it in front of everybody for the first time ever.
Yeah, so we just finished all of our paperwork with January, I think it's 7th and 8th, a Monday and Tuesday.
Okay.
Will be our next event. It's at the Gaylord Texan Resort just outside of Dallas. I think it's Grapevine, but it's technically like 15 minutes from the Dallas airport.
Awesome.
So that'll be just after the new year, January 7th and 8th. We're only doing 2 or 3 of those a year. They're my favorite to do, but they do take quite a bit. Well, you guys know, you do events. It's a lot to put together. So we just do a few a year. We'll do 2 or 3 next year. That'll be the first one.
Awesome. That's good to hear. You guys heard it here first on the Good Success Podcast.
Yes.
Awesome stuff.
So
and then,
John, how much are those events? And is there any other pre-quals, or just like if you're in sales and you want to learn how to be in sales, go to the website?
Yeah, so those boot camps are for real estate only. The vast majority, I'd say 90% of the people there are business owners and their acquisitions teams who are out there looking for properties to buy. Yeah. Now, kind of over time, we've started training dispositions people and turnkey people, anyone that has any type of sales capacity in what they do. But the vast majority are those acquisition agents who are looking to lock up deals at the right price point so they can, actually use the property as an investment. Cost of that's $2,500 per person for the 2 days, and we provide all the food and that kind of stuff.
Cool. Okay. Very cool. And then you said they can go check that out at MidwestRev.com?
MidwestRev.com. There'll be a spot just for real estate investors, and then there's a boot camps tab somewhere under there.
Awesome. Well, very cool.
I'm interested in that, John. So, Josh, can you just make sure that we get that information to Jared and Manny? That might be something I could send Jared and Manny to.
Absolutely. Yeah, that'd be fantastic to send them to that. So that'd be really cool. Awesome
and maybe
stuff.
You too, Josh. We'll see.
Maybe me too. That'd be awesome since I'm sales and good success now. So
that's right.
Yeah. Awesome stuff, man. I'm excited about this. So MidwestRev.com is where you can check that out. John, this was some really good information, some stuff I wasn't even expecting all this to be said. I've listened to all your videos on Facebook, your webinar, and all that stuff, and some very valuable content. So in case you didn't know, John actually puts out a lot of videos on Facebook. So he brings a lot of value to the table when it comes to free content. We love free content. So great stuff. We appreciate you being on. We look forward to having you back soon.
Yeah, thanks for having me. See you guys.
Thanks, John.
Awesome stuff. So that's going to do it for today's episode, guys. We appreciate you joining in with us. And if you guys did enjoy this episode, we have a lot more interviews that we have done. We're on episode, I believe this is 128, 129. And so you guys subscribe to the Good Success Podcast. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play, and all the podcast platforms. Just go to the platform, search for Good Success. Subscribe there, and then leave us a review if you're able to. We would appreciate that. And then make sure you pick up your book, The Active Turnkey Book, The Best Way to Buy Rentals by Tom Olson himself. He wrote it. He's paying for it. All you got to do is pay for shipping, and that is it. You can pick that up at goodsuccess.com/ATK book. Take advantage of that. A lot of value in there, a lot of great stuff. And then the Good Success Mastermind coming up November 8, 9, and 10 in Miami, Florida. Goodsuccess.com/mastermind is where you can learn more about that. And we would love to see you there. Fill out the application, and then you'll talk to either myself or Tom, and we'll go from there. That's going to do it for today's episode. We appreciate you guys joining in, and we look forward to having you back. And remember to be a conduit and not a bucket.
Work to have to give.
Catch you guys in the next one.